Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marian Gibbs, and I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank the committee and Jeff for inviting me out this weekend. And David and I have had such a great time, and you guys are a wonderful group of people. And we've met, the first person I met here was Cliff with 55 years. And that always warms my heart. And I want to, I'm going to start crying. My favorite part of any convention is the sobriety countdown. And I want to thank Linda and all the men and women who've come before me, who've made it possible for a drunk like me to come to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and find a solution to my problem. And that you put your $1 or $2 in the basket to keep the door open so that I might find you. And to welcome to Janelle. And that's why I put my money in the basket, so a drunk woman like you will have a place to find us and find a solution to your problem. And welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm going to be remiss if I don't remark about the gift basket. Massive. And it was fabulous, and my husband is I call him my little tweaker, because if it was me, I would open the basket and then peek in and find something, rummage around, but my husband takes everything out and lines it up across the table. Line of water, sodas, chips, cookies, meat, toys, you name it. And he's like, look at this. This is the best basket we've ever gotten. And I said, best basket we've ever gotten? He says, it's got my name on the card. It's half mine. So you've made my husband very happy this weekend. I was thinking, today is Easter, the most holy day of the Christian faith, and the miracle, the resurrection of Christ, for those who celebrate today, and happy Easter. And in the foreword to the second edition, my book's falling apart. It says, since the original foreword to this book was written in 1939, a wholesale miracle has taken place. And I like to look up the words, and wholesale, in my dictionary, said performed on large scale. So when I go to Costco, I can't buy 1 roll of toilet paper, I have to buy 50. So a wholesale miracle in my dictionary for miracle says divine intervention manifesting itself in human affairs. And that's performed on large scale. And when I think of the millions of men and women who have come before me, the millions that are going to come after me, and the ones that are in this room, a wholesale miracle has taken place. In Alcoholics Anonymous, where I was given a new life. And I welcome you, Janelle, and I hope that you find Alcoholics Anonymous, and let the wholesale miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous work in your life. Since this is a AA, Al-Anon, and Alateen convention, I'm going to read from the family afterwards. It says, showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them. What a great gift we've been given. It is not my car or my home or my bank account or anything of a tangible nature that I've been given here. But my greatest asset, my greatest possession is my past and what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. So I'm going to share with you this morning what it was like, what happened, my experience through the steps, and what my life is like today. I grew up in Lancaster and still there. Desert, 30-mile-hour winds and tumbleweeds blowing by. And so it's lovely to be down here in San Diego this weekend with you. And, and it was Jack Daniels and rock and roll, and I partied. I had a great time. I didn't have too much trouble in the beginning. I just liked to party. I come from a home, I'm the middle child, and my little sister came, and I was 8 when she was born, and, oh, God, that first week I loved her. I looked in that bassinet, and she was so beautiful, and she would smile at me. It was gas, I didn't know that, but a week into Janice being home, I'm like, I'm not liking her so much. By the end of the month, I don't like this chick at all, because what happened was I'm an attention seeker, and my little sister was now getting all the attention from the family, and I don't like her at all. And I'm an attention seeker since I was growing up. I get to school, and I have to compete with 30 other kids for the teacher's attention, so I act out, because I do anything to get attention, and if I can't seek good attention, I will seek out bad attention. My brother became the class president, and my sister was on homecoming court, and then there was me. And if that's the only way I can get my mom and dad to pay attention to me, I will do whatever I have to do to get that attention going on. So it had ever been until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. So I grew up partying, and I had a great time, and I got married at the age of 19. I don't have much business being married at that age because it all revolves around me. And he needs to be keeping up with all of my incessant demands that I have for him and things he needs to do for me and to pay attention to me. And did you notice I cut my hair? And what about my new jacket? And just a constant focus, have your attention on me. And he exhausted rather quickly in that marriage. And we moved to LA from Lancaster, and I was living in LA, and he left on a Wednesday, and I went to work on Thursday. I worked in a law firm, and the girls used to go out, and I said, are you guys going out this weekend? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, do you mind if I go? And they said, sure, come along. And we go out to this nightclub with all this disco-y type music out there, and everybody's out there. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, my first concert was Led Zeppelin, 1977, and and they got all this Madonna and Shaka Khan, and I'm like, holy smokes. And my friend gave me a Long Island iced tea, and 8 Long Island iced teas later, woo, Shaka Khan. I like the way alcohol made me feel. And it took away everything that felt wrong with me, because it made me 4 inches taller and 20 pounds lighter, a lot shapelier than I am now, smarter, prettier, funnier. And you're not looking too bad either. Because ladies, you know it's true. You're at the bar and you got that drink, and I would go in, I'm like, God, would you look at these dudes? Pfft, they're ugly. 2 Long Island iced teas later, man, these dudes are hot. Wow. I liked everything about alcohol. And it was the great salve in my life. I didn't go out. I went out every night after the loss of that marriage but one. And I stayed home and I started to cry. And I said, forget this. And I got up and I got showered and I put on some clothes and I went to the bar. Because alcohol just took away everything that felt wrong with me. And every sad, sorrowful thing that ever happened to me, it just makes everything go away and doesn't seem to bother me anymore. So I get married and I get divorced, obviously, because he can't keep up. And I've now found the bar. I'm a bar drinker. I love the bars. I love the excitement. I love the attention. I love the lights. Everything about it made me so excited. But things are starting to happen in my drinking, and my roommate was saying, I told her, I said, Debbie, I think I'm drinking a little too much, and I'm going to cut back after the Halloween party. I never once thought about quitting drinking, but I'm just drinking a little too much. So what happened is I got arrested on October 30th, 1985 for drunk driving as I'm pulling into my garage in Van Nuys. And it was a great thing that happened to me, because I was sentenced to 6 meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, a court-ordered therapy group at, I think it was Northridge Community Hospital at the time, and a restricted license, to and from work and to and from AA. So it'd be my night to drive, and Debbie says, it's your night. I said, I can't, but here's my keys. And it allowed me to free me up to drink like how I wanted to drink, because we always had the rule who was ever driving had to stay most sober. Obviously, I can't follow that rule. So it just freed me up to drink. And I went to a little hospital therapy group, and they're talking about things I have no interest in and going over my head, and it was terrible. And I went to my first AA meeting. It was on a Saturday night. I do not know why I thought I had to go to it on a Saturday night, because it was cutting into my drinking. But the guy was funny. He was a Skid Row drunk who lived in a cardboard box, and he got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, and now he was a lawyer. And I thought, my God, if I lived in a box, I'd go to AA too. I don't identify with that guy. I'm 24 years old. I have no idea how close I'm getting to that box at that point. So I went back to my little therapy group, and I said, if I have to suffer through that AA meeting, at least that guy was really funny. They said, better than that, there's a great bar next door. Really? So sure enough, there was. So I walked into the meeting room. It's a large meeting in the city, and I put my court card in the basket, and I went next door to the bar, and I ordered a beer and played darts. And I didn't hear the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. As my drinking progressed, things were happening in my drinking, and my roommate would come home, and she'd say the next day, Marian, I cannot believe you said that to Bernadette last night. I'm like, said what? And then she'd tell me, I'm like, no. Really? Was she mad? She was pissed. I don't care. I don't like Bernadette anyway. As my drinking progressed, she goes, Marian, I cannot believe you did that last night. And I said, did what? And she'd tell me what I did. And I'm like, no. Oh, Debbie, tell me I didn't. Oh, my God. And she said, you did. I'm like, oh, my God. At the end of my friendship, and it was certainly not the end of my drinking, she said, get out. I'm like, what? You know what you did, Marian. Get out of here. Get out. And I don't know. I'm a blackout drinker. I became a blackout drinker when I was drinking. I came home from work on February 1st, 1986, and there was a note, and she had moved out during the day while I was at work, and it said, you scare me. And I'm pissed, and I'm mad. Not that she moved out, but the rent is due. And so I did the only thing a good alcoholic could do. I never paid any more rent while I lived there. And now I have nobody to protect me from my drinking or even to be looking after me, so I start drinking on a 24-hour basis. And I shortly drink myself out of that job because I can't go to work anymore. I can't pay my bills. I have money in the bank, but I can't write a check and mail it because I'd have to go to the post office and buy the postage. So I lose my electricity, and I've solved that problem. I have an extension cord that I threw from the parking structure up over the balcony. I plugged in the stereo, a fan, and a lamp. I have no hot water because I haven't paid the gas bill, and I don't really need to take showers anyway. I have 50 bags of garbage. They were paper at the time, and I'm notorious for smoking a half a cigarette, so I'm laying out all the garbage out of all these bags in my house and picking out the cigarette butts to smoke because I can't go over to the cigarette store to buy myself some cigarettes. I've lost the keys to that apartment, and I have a ladder from the alley to the balcony. Now, I don't know why I can't use my front door. I guess I was paranoid, and I would come up and down the ladder in the alley. Had I used the front door, I would notice I had an eviction notice on my door. But see, it says our alcoholic life becomes the only normal one we know. I'm good with this. Man, nothing bothers me. I can go as low as I can go, as long as I have something to drink. And there was nothing wrong with the way I'm living. So I'm drinking and carrying on. I have 8 warrants on that drunk driving because I can't make it to court. And I have lies every time I go to court. And finally, they give me a public defender, and I have to explain why I wasn't at my last court appearance. And I tell them I was snowed in Washington. Well, did you fly? No, I drove. Do you have hotel receipts? I said, nope, we drove straight through. Gas receipts? My brother paid. Alcoholics are quick on our feet. I have stories for everything. And one more time, I'm getting out of jail, one more time, with the promise that I'm going to appear for my next appearance, and I can't go. It says that, we pick up a drink a day or so prior to the important event, and it can't be met, and that's me. Court appointments, family events. I want to be there with you, but I start drinking yesterday and I'm still going 2 days from now and I can't make those important events. And that includes my court times. So I have a warrant, and finally this time I got picked up on another charge and they're going to hold me on my warrant. They're not releasing me. And my family had been looking for me for a while. My mother had once called when I had a phone before I wired up to my neighbors to call for a Domino's pizza. I can't receive calls, but my mother had said, Marian, we are so worried about you. I said, you know what? When you see my picture on TV that says, do you know this girl? Then you worry. Get off my back. See, because all I want to do is drink, and you're getting in my way. And so I'm sitting down in Sybil Brand Institute. My parents come down to my apartment and they see the eviction notice on and they find the ladder and they come up over the ladder. And because I have no electricity going into my house, the food that I had in my refrigerator and freezer has rotted and now it has manifested with maggots. And my parents walk in and smell this stench and they think I'm dead. And they start searching my apartment looking for me. And then they find out that I'm down in Sybil Brand and they rent a U-Haul and take what belongings I had that was worth even saving and take out of my apartment to take up to Lancaster. Now, when I get out of jail, I go over to your house to party, and then I go home and I walk into my place and most of my belongings are gone and I think I've been robbed. And I start screaming up and down the apartment complex about who stole my stuff. And finally, one of my brave neighbors comes out and he said, Marian, your mom and dad were here. They took your things. Oh, no. Because nobody wants to call mom and dad. So I don't. I call my brother and his wife. And I get my sister-in-law on the phone. I said, so I hear mom and dad were down at my place. She said, yeah, when you were sitting in jail, they moved you out. You had an eviction notice on your door. I said, well, how'd that go? She said, well, while they were moving you out, your dad's had a heart attack. He's in the hospital. See, nobody's being hurt by my drinking. I'm thinking, if you can't see me, you have no idea. But what happened is when my parents walked into that apartment and they smell this, they're looking around going, my God, what has happened to our daughter? What is going on? But I can't think of my mom and dad. So I borrow a car because my car's been impounded and drive up to Lancaster, and I have a whole story of why things are happening the way they're happening. And when I'm done with that, I come back and I'm living down in that apartment. And I stay there about another week or so, and my mom and dad came down to that apartment, and they knocked on the door, and they said, Marian, you need to come get your life in order. Why don't you come up to Lancaster and stay with us for a while? All right. So I got my car out of impound, and I'm staying at my mom and dad's house. I'm 25 years old, and I'm not alcoholic. And I go water skiing up in Porterville, Pixley, California, with some friends of mine. They're non-alcoholic. They invited me to go, but boy, as soon as I got in the back of that Jeep, I cracked a beer and I start myself drinking. And I don't even water ski that weekend. I called my biker boyfriend who rode up on his Harley, and we sat in a bar and drank all weekend. And I'm in some little bar in, I don't know, I think I'm in Pixley. I have no idea where I'm at. And last thing I know is I'm standing at the bar drinking, and the next thing I know, I'm on the back of the Harley, and 3 rather large women are standing outside threatening to kill me. And we get on the motorcycle and we go, and my friends pick me up on Sunday. I come home to my mom and dad's, and my friends must have been in contact with my parents, and my mom and dad said, Marian, you have been lying all along. And you have 2 options this weekend. You are either going to go get yourself some help, or we're going to take you to the streets of LA. What do you want to do? And kind of what you shared the other night. To live on a spiritual terms or die an alcoholic death are not easy alternatives to face. Well, I guess I'm going to go get some help then. So I'm 25 years old. I'm walking down Antelope Valley Hospital, inpatient, high road to recovery program with my mom and dad. And I'm walking down into the psych ward where they have us at, and there were 7 guys sitting in that day room. And I'm like, wow, I hope that's where I'm going. Because my primary purpose for those 7 men, it was not about getting sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. I am not an alcoholic. Now, I just got run out of a town the night before, but I am not an alcoholic. And so I have to go to this little thing, and it's, I'm in detox in there, and who are the H&I people here? I know there's a big H&I group down in San Diego and North San Diego County. Thank you, because you're the people who saved my life. And what happened was, well, I hated you when you got there. You were the boringest group of people that were ever on the planet of AA. You came to every meeting, and they were all book studies. And this woman in particular, I did not like her, and her name was Vicky. And she would read every paragraph. She goes, "My name's Vicky, I'm an alcoholic, I'd like to talk about this here." Then we'd read the next paragraph. "My name is Vicky, I'm an alcoholic, I'd like to talk about this here." I'm like, shut up, Jesus. "My name is Vicky, I'm gonna hit that broad, Jesus, shut up." Hated her. And because I was an alcoholic, I joined another fellowship. I got myself a sponsor that didn't give direction. They told me to get a sponsor that, told me to get a sponsor. They didn't tell me to get one that gave direction, so I'd call her on occasion. "Oh, hey, yeah, I'm gonna go to the meeting." "Okay then, okie doke, see you later, bye." So what happened was I met him while I was in treatment. I hate you, and I have a sponsor without getting any direction. And so what happened was I got out of there. I heard the AA, the treatment center line, which was 90 meetings in 90 days. The book says try not drinking for a year. My mother picked me up one night because after I detoxed, I could do outpatient. I was there from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, and then some of you AA people would take me to meetings, but my mother would pick me up. And there's an old man named Willie. He was 8 years sober at the time. He's still alive today. And she says, "So what do you do every night?" He says, "I go to a meeting." She's driving me home. She goes, "That man has no life." I said, "No, he doesn't. I'm going to do 90 meetings in 90 days, and then I'm going to cut back." She goes, "I think you should." Well, that's a bad idea for a drunk like me. So I did my 90 meetings in 90 days, and I hooked up with that newcomer who's a chronic 30-day relapser, and it's going to be okay. It's going to work out just fine. And you took me to my outside meetings, and you always took me to book studies, and we're reading Chapter to Wives. "Marian, would you like to share?" I'm like, "No, I'm not a wife of an alcoholic. It has nothing to do with me." They smiled, and they said, "Keep coming back." Because that chapter is very descriptive of my drinking. So what happened is that boyfriend and I move in together, and he comes home loaded. I said, "Honey, if you're going, I'm going." And I went out and got some tequila and spent another 8.5 months out there. And my psychiatrist from the hospital knew I was no longer sober, so he cut me off a state disability, and I had to get a job. So I moved back to Los Angeles, and I talked a girlfriend into giving me a job at her law firm, and I got a job. And I'm telling you, my grandmother died 3 times, from February to July 12, 1987, when I got drunk. And I got stories. And you gather around my desk on Monday morning because I have excitement going on. And all this drama and this chaos, and people would come to my desk, and they said, "What happened this weekend?" "Oh my God, the guy next door, he said he was going to shoot his old lady, and he brought all of his guns over, and I got like 6 guns at my house." They're like, "You're kidding." I'm like, "No." Doug's neighborhood, Tahunga. All this chaos was always going on in my life, and you know what? I'm drinking, and then I'm thinking I'm only going to drink on weekends. And then I'm going to just throw in Thursday because I don't have to work that hard on Friday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it proceeds into Sunday over to Monday. And pretty soon I'm drinking back every single day. And now I can't go to work, but I can't even call my employer to tell them I'm not coming. So what happens to me is I just unplug the phone from the wall. So I haven't showed up to my job for several days, and my employer thinks I've been murdered and has called the sheriff's department. And if you're a good drunk woman like me, you have bruises all over your arms from fighting. And the boyfriend and I are passed out on the couch, and there's crack under my door about this big. And we're sleeping, and and I look, and it's the shiny black boots. I'm like, "Shh, it's the cops." I'm not answering. But they're not going to go away either because they think I've been murdered. So now it's a standoff. But eventually they jiggle open the window and they use the baton, and I feign this whore, and he sees the bruises all over me, and he's like, "So honey, what's going on?" I said, "I was down at the grocery store and this guy, He tried to abduct me. I give him a full description of the guy, the van he's driving. I do the whole thing. The sheriff's department calls my employer, says she was sexually assaulted. My employer sends a bouquet this big, this wide, take the rest of the week off. So I'm thinking it's pretty prudent I show up to work on Monday. So I get to relive the entire story. And I pull up my sleeve, Steve, it was awful. And I relived the whole assault. And then the few ladies who are still left speaking to me gather around, and I'm like, it was so awful. And then the cop had given me a card for victims counseling. Yeah, because my head says if you don't go, they're going to know you're lying. So now I go get counseling for an assault that never happened. See, because I can't differentiate the true from the false. This is now what really happened to me. I have been sexually assaulted. I can't differentiate the true. Because if I believe it, then you're going to believe it. And so that's the way I lived my life. On July 4th, I never drank in San Diego, and you're very fortunate for that. But I drove a lot through here, Mexico. July 4th weekend, 1987, I have the grand idea to go to Mexico with the girls. I know what happens when I go to Mexico. I drink tequila. And I know what happens when I drink tequila. And the last thing I know, remember, I'm dancing. And the next thing I know, I come to, and I got a black eye and a fat lip, cracked ribs, no panties, parked in the desert, and my money's gone. I'm like, ooh, dude. I drive back to my hotel, and I knock on the door, because I've lost my key. And nobody answers, and I have the maid let me in, and my girlfriends are gone, and their luggage are gone. I thought, well, they can't have gone far. I drove. So I sleep it off, and I wake up, and they're still not there, and I get up, and I lay by the pool. By the end of the day, I realize they're not coming back. So I load up my things, and I drive home, and I come back across the border, and I pick up the phone, and I call them. It seems I got in a fight with them and the fight with the federales, and I tried to run my girlfriends over. And they had the federales take them to get their luggage into the border where they got a Greyhound bus home. And then they called my family and said, she's crazy. Now, they thought I was on drugs. To my knowledge, I did not use any other substances other than alcohol and tequila that evening. They just don't know what it's like to be with a girl who drinks like me. Because those are the things I drink, and those are the things I do. But I'm not alcoholic. Because, see, I get home, and I called a couple people from H&I in Lancaster that I'd met, and I kind of give them a brief rundown on what happened, but not the whole story. And so the book says that we can't bring with sufficient force the humiliation of a week or a month ago. I like to say a day ago, because the next day I'm drinking. And my head says, you can have just two. Just two. And I have 2 drinks. And the next day, I'm just going to have 2, and I have 2 drinks. By the 3rd day, I'm drinking as carelessly as it's ginger ale. And there I go. My last drunk was July 11th, 1987, and it wasn't my worst drunk, it was just happened to be my last drunk. I'm on a blind date, let's say with Jeff. And I'm not the catch. I mean, I still got the black eye. I'm on my date with Jeff. He must have been desperate. But I look across the bar, and there's Travis, the man I've been waiting for my entire life. And I leave my date to go home with another man. And in the middle of doing the nasty, I got a moment of clarity. I'm like, dude, I gotta go. He's like, now? Right now? I got a lot of wardrobe malfunction when I was drinking. Whew. I made that drive up to Lancaster because they said, Marian, if you got enough gas to get here, we'll get you home. And I made that phone call, and I went to my friend's, somebody from H&I's job, and his boss said, he's waiting for you down the way at that little sandwich shop. So he's waiting for you, and he's a big guy, bigger than 6'2" guy. And I walk in, and that man stood up, and I just couldn't take it. And I just started to sob. And he put his arms around me, and I just laid in his arms and his chest, and I cried, and he held me so close, and he said, Marian, you never have to feel this way again for the rest of your life, one day at a time if you don't want to. Man, that's all I wanted. I don't know how I'm not going to drink, Janelle, but I just don't want to feel the way I'm feeling right now ever again. And he sold me on my first piece of hope here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I started going to meetings. I got engaged at 3 weeks sober. I needed him. I don't like him, but I need him. And I'm hanging with the men. The ladies know me. They know my game, but the men, I know how to play you fellas, and I'm hanging with you. But the sad part was, I'm with fellas who are getting direction from their sponsors out of the book. So I asked this woman to be my sponsor, and I go to her house, and I sit down, and I'm not going to tell you about all that stuff. But she starts telling me all of Lila's stuff. I'm like, oh my God. And then I get everything about Anita. Oh my God. And then everything about Debbie. I'm like, oh my God. Because see, I'm not going to tell you about the men, the maggots, and the 50 bags of garbage I got in my house. Those are my secrets, and I'm not telling anybody because that's my stuff. And she's telling me I needed to do an inventory, and I'm like scared to death. So because I'm hanging out with the men in AA and the ones who are using the book, and I went to you old timers, and I said, look, I need a woman that uses the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and do you know a woman who can help me through the steps? And they said, yeah, honey, here you go. Vicky. No. No. Mm-mm. Nope. Nada. So I suffer a while longer, and I go to another old timer. I'm like, hey, do you know a woman who can take me through the steps who uses the book? Yeah, honey, here you go. Vicky. Dang! I don't even like that woman. She's nice and petite. She took her clothes off because she thought she was Mother Nature. I took my clothes off because I'm a tramp, and that's the only thing we had in common. And I was certain she sponsored every woman in AA. She was 8 years sober, so I have to have a spiel why she needs to sponsor me. So I run it all through my head, and I get out there, and I call her up on the phone, and I told her this woman wants me to do an inventory. I said, I don't even know anything about the first 3 steps. And if I happen to stay sober, how am I going to help somebody else if I don't even know what I'm talking about? She goes, honey, I'd be happy to. And you're a real alcoholic, and if you want to stay sober, you're going to have to take these steps. And you go to meetings early, and you stay late, and you stick out your hand to people with less time, and you empty ashtrays, wipe down tables, make and pour coffee, and never turn down an AA request. Okay. I don't even like you guys. All right. And we went through the doctor's opinion, and I learned what it meant to be alcoholic. Because see, when I'm drinking at the captain's chair on Oxnard Street, because I no longer can go to the clubs, I'm drinking at a toilet of a bar. And I'm a drunk, big deal. But I don't know what it means to be alcoholic. I didn't know that I had a physical allergy and a mental obsession. I didn't know that it would tell me, you can have just one. Stay away from the tequila. Eat dinner first. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. And then once I start to drink, I can't stop myself from having the 2nd and the 5th and the 8th. Because I want to go out with the ladies after work and have a drink. And then they're going, we're going home. I go, you're going home, really? Okay, bye-bye. Because once I start, I got to keep drinking. I got to drink until the bars close because I've developed the phenomenon of craving. And I never knew that was wrong with me. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
But I can't tell you my life is unmanageable. And so what's happening for me is I'm looking good on the outside. I'm starting to shower every day. I'm coming back, my hair isn't so dead and frazzled. I'm wearing makeup. My clothes I'm not pulling out of the trunk of the car. Good. And I'm starting to pay off some of those debts. But see, what's happening, nothing in my life is changing. So I'm engaged to be married. I go on a cruise with a normie girlfriend. She's never seen me drink. And so what happened is before we go, she goes, you could probably drink. And I go, yeah, probably the first day, maybe even the second day. But by the third day, I'm going to be hanging naked from the flagpole. And she's like, oh, yeah. She has no idea. So we're on our way to the casino one night, and she stops to get a drink. And this was probably the greatest trip I've ever been on in my life. I'm sorry, honey, but it is. She's having a Kahlua and cream made, and I'm watching it mix. I'm like, oh my God, I want a drink. Oh, I want a sip. Oh, I want to lick the straw. I closed my eyes, I grabbed the bar, and I said, my name is Marian, I'm an alcoholic. God help me, I don't want to drink. Because there is nothing between me and that drink. She got her drink, we went to the casino, and I said, Cindy, I'm going to be right back. And I went down to my room, and I got out my big book, and I read chapter 3, more about alcoholism, the insidious insanity of the first drink. And that trip wasn't that successful because I am engaged to be married, but I looked across the room. And there's the man I've been waiting for my whole life. Wow. And I had sex with that man. And I realized that I may not be drinking or doing anything else, but nothing in my life has changed. I'm doing exactly what I've always done at the expense of everybody in my life. And I called my sponsor, and I'm like, oh my God, Vicki, what do I got to do? And she's like, it's about time. So then I had to come to believe. Now, I went to church as a kid, saying Jesus loves me, have no idea anything about God. I have no relationship whatsoever. I have no personal relationship. I think that was the greatest thing that Ebby had told Bill, was choose your own conception of God. My sponsor was a fundamentalist, born-again Christian. Ooh. She'd tell me all these parables from the Bible. Do you know that parable? Nope. They have morals behind them, but I don't know that. I can't hear it. And I'm watching her, and she would be walking through some difficult things. I'm like, so how are you getting through this? She goes, with God's help. Whatever. Right. But she was a great example of watching God work in another woman's life here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I listened to you share about God working in your life. And I read We Agnostics, which my sponsor had given me. And I said, Vicki, I don't get it. She says, read it again. I don't get it, read it again. I don't get it, read it again. I read it 20 more times. Vicki, I don't get it. She's like, read it again. I'm in 3 big book studies a week. 1 week, all 3 big book studies are on We Agnostics. And there it was. And it says, when we were driven to AA by a self-imposed crisis we could neither postpone nor evade, we had to fearlessly face the proposition that God is everything or else he is nothing. He either is or he isn't. What do you choose? Well, I believe that God is. So that meant God was everything. And I love the next paragraph. We are now confronted squarely with the matter of faith. And it talks about being on the bridge of reason and stepping to the shore of faith. My reasoning has got me thus far, but look where I'm standing. And it says that, hands stretch out. Come on, Marian, come on. My sponsor and all of you are, come on, Marian, step to the shore of faith. And I'm like, I can't. I'm so afraid. Come on, Marian. It's so much better over here, but I can't. Because I don't know what's over there. I don't know how to get there. And they're like, Marian, just take that step. And I stepped onto the shore of faith with you. And what happened for me was, I started to form my own conception. When I am new, and I come here as a very broken and shamed woman, and I was crying to my sponsor, and I was very brokenhearted, and she said, Marian, sometimes only God can comfort the soul. And why don't you ask God if you could curl up on his lap and let him put his arms around you? And that became my conception of God, because you all, the older people, will remember Edith Ann and the rocking chair. And that's God's rocking chair. And most of you are parents or grandparents. And you hold that baby in your arm and you hold them close, and that comfort and that protection that that child feels. And that became my conception of God, that I curl up on God's lap and he lets him put his arms around me. And that became my personal relation with God. Then my sponsor came over and I had to do the third step with her on my knees, and I cried. I've never prayed with anybody before. I'd never prayed out loud, and I never prayed on my knees. And it was a moving experience for me. When it says, before we take step 3, it says, being convinced of A, B, and C, we are now at step 3. Just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? So the next couple pages are just what do we mean by that. And they talk about us being the actors, always running the show, forever arranging the lights, the ballet, everything to suit my needs. And I have to start looking at my life to see how that is happening in my life. Now, I'm not above that. A month ago, my husband, 6'2" guy, and myself, and a friend of ours, Steve, who has cancer, were traveling to Texas. They're getting off in Dallas to go to a men's retreat in Lake Murray, Oklahoma. I'm on my way down to Midland, Texas. So we get on the plane. I'm first in line. I spot the overhead carriage. David, put them there. You put mine, then yours, and then there'll be room for Steve's right there. No, David, put it right there. No, slide it down. Slide it down. Slide it down a little bit more. Now my head's saying, shut up. But my mouth is going, no, move it. Move it down that way. And thank God he is not listening to me. So I just sit down. I'm like, oh my God. See, because I still forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, everything to suit my needs. And then it says, and just what do we do? It says I have to quit playing God. It did not work. So when I did that third step prayer, I asked that God now be the director. So what happens is I have to do that inventory. I had to list my resentments, my fear, and my sex conduct. And my resentments, I list all my resentments, and I love it because I've listed the 3 columns, and it says, we look at this list. It says to look at it. We carefully review what we've written. And we see that the world and its people dominated us. Oh, yes, they did. Look at what she did to me. And him. Oh, my God. So I'm reading about that. Then the next paragraph says, reviewing our list again, we look at it from an entirely different angle. Really? And then it says, we look at it, and it says, though perhaps I may not like your symptoms, you like myself are sick too. And I practiced that resentment prayer on each and every person that was on my list and every single resentment that I had. And what happened is it gave a little bit of relief to me and cut you a little bit of slack. And then it says, reviewing our list again, putting out of the minds the wrongs others had done. We looked for our own mistakes. Because, see, I'd never gotten that far. So I got that all down on paper. And then it says, next, you notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside. Well, fear is bracketed alongside every single resentment that I have. Fear. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. So I'm not really necessarily angry. I'm driven by fear. I'm so fearful what you think about me. I'm so fearful I'm not going to get what I have. I'm fearful you're going to take whatever I do have. Don't publicly humiliate me. My 5th grade teacher, I got caught. She was mean, Mrs. Cawthorne. I have her desk thing in my office now. I got popped chewing gum, and it's on the tip of my nose, drawn in a circle on the chalkboard. Hated that woman. But did I not set the ball rolling? I know her rules. And then I'm publicly humiliated in front of my classmates. So that is the fear that's behind my resentment. And then it says, I trust in God. I says, we ask God to remove our fears and direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once, we commenced to outgrow fear. I direct my attention to what he would have me be, not what he'd have me do. I do a lot, but what he would have me be here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And then I love that. At once, we commenced to outgrow fear. And then I listed my sex conduct. And one of the greatest things that ever happened, it says, for our future sex conduct. What kind of woman would I like to be here? It allowed me to wipe the slate clean about the woman I was when I was out there drinking. I didn't have to have any more notches in my belt. I got to start fresh here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I listed that, and it said, whom had I hurt? So not only the men I slept with, but the wives and the children of the married men I slept with. Because while I'm sleeping with your husband, he's at a hotel that he's paid for. I'm taking time away and money from that family. I had no idea how encompassing my sex conduct could be. And then my sponsor came over, and I shared everything about it. I love it when it says God, ourselves, and another human being. God already knows, I know. But what happened is when I verbalized it and made it out loud, it was real to me, it was real to God, it was real to my sponsor, and it made me vulnerable to God and to my sponsor. And I told that woman everything about me. And when I was done, it says we take the book down and we pray from the bottom of our heart that we got to know him better. Our fears fall from us and we can look the world in the eye. We're at perfect peace and ease. And when I'm taking that hour and I'm praying from the bottom of my heart about what I had learned about myself and the joy and the sense of relief, I'm laying there and I tell people that the silence was deafening. Because for the first time in my life, I'm laying at perfect peace, and it was kind of freaky. I had to call my sponsor when I was done. The sixth step, we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. My sponsor said, are you ready? I said, yes, I am. She goes, well, are you entirely ready? Well, no, not entirely ready. Who's ever entirely ready, really? So I want those glaring defects that keep me in constant conflict with you taken away. But what about the more subtle ones? I mean, look at Debbie. She's perfectly coiffed. Her makeup is beautiful. She's so lovely. Bitch. And Carla, so tall and thin. She walks by and she's so elegant. She thinks she is a model? A dancer? Because I have envy, and you don't even know. I don't even like her. I don't even know her. And I'll tell you a story. I'm going to a morning 6:30 a.m. attitude adjustment meeting. Beautiful sunny day. All the windows are open. And I walk in and there's a guy sitting there with his sunglasses on. I'm like, man, that dude is so hip, slick, and sick. Could you look at him and blah, 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 blah. Then he got up with his cane. Because I'm full of judgment, and you don't even know. So when I start to see how these affect my life in all areas of my life, I'm entirely ready. And my sponsor came over, and we did the 7-step prayer. And I asked God to remove those defects of character, and I have to start practicing the character asset building qualities. When I'm rude, I have to be kind. When I'm intolerant, I have to practice tolerant. When I'm impatient, patience. And those weren't very natural for me. And it was a lot of work and a lot of practice and a lot of struggle, and still sometimes it is. Then I had to make a list of the people I'd harmed. How did I harm them? Emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. I mean, how can I ever make up to my mom and dad what I've done to them? Repaying the money, the things I stolen. But what about that emotional security that I stole so long? What about those nights that they laid in bed wondering if this is the night they're going to get the call from that our daughter is dead? How do I give that back to my mom and dad? I went out to make those amends with the people that I had harmed. Most of them turned into a positive. There were some that roommate of mine, she doesn't care that I am sober. But see, she hasn't witnessed the growth here in Alcoholics Anonymous. She has no idea what kind of woman I am today. And I've cleaned up the past as best that I can. And I've made right everywhere that I possibly could. And some situations that I thought would never be righted have been righted. And that's the amazing thing of Alcoholics Anonymous. The 10th step, continue to take personal inventory when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. One of the things I like in there, and I talk about it every time I speak, because it really doesn't, it talks about reviewing our day in the next chapter. But however, it says, it's easy to rest up on the spiritual program of action, and we are in trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. What we have is a daily reprieve based upon our spiritual condition. At 7 years of sobriety, and again at 13 years of sobriety, I'm complacent. Things are going swimmingly well for me. My career is soaring. I own a home. Things are beautiful. I'll call my sponsor tomorrow. Do I really want to hear Jeff share again tonight? Woohoo, God, I'm like busy. I'm going to catch up with you later. I got other things to do. I want to go home and watch 24, right? And so what happens is I let the life that AA gave me get in the way of my AA life. And I've become complacent. And one day I wake up and I'm in a world of crap, and I've been in a world of crap for a very long time. And I picked up the phone and I called a woman I hardly know, and I said, Cindy, I'm in trouble. And she said, are you drinking? And I said, not yet. It's only by the grace of God that I didn't have a drink during that time. And it was only by this much humility that I was able to pick up that phone and said, help me. Because I know I'm going to drink, because I'm crazy in my head. It says the insanity returns and we drink again. At 13 years of sobriety, I do the same thing. Am I stupid? Since that time, I am actively sponsored. I attend 5 meetings a week. I was my intergroup rep for 2 years. I wrote the AA Scoop newsletter from our central office for 2.5 years. I'm the cake lady at my home group. I have 3 H&I commitments. I'm the panel coordinator for Lancaster State Prison. I'm on my Roundup committee. This year I'm registration chair and treasurer. I have to be in the middle of AA. If I'm not in AA, I'm on my way out of AA. And that's only for me. So if you're complacent, pick up the phone and say, I'm in trouble. I sponsor several women with double digits of sobriety who've been where I've been, and I share that freely. One walked in my house. She's my coordinator for my other panel, and I needed some big books for my panel. And she walked in. I go, how's it going? She goes, good. I go, really? She goes, no. She had been sponsorless for the last couple years, and she says, can you help me? All we have to do is ask. It says, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. I worked in a law firm. I was a secretary at the time. I worked for, and they were all Jewish. And I worked for one of my bosses, and I had to go work for another boss for a period of time, and he didn't like me very much, and who could blame him? And I went to work for Bob, and we got a check, a royalty check for like $1.22. I'm like, so what do you want me to do with this? He goes, I want you to put it in the client trust account and split it 60-20. Really? I go, Jesus, Bob, you are Jewish. And he was mad. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Sorries are cheap from a gal like me. And I went home and I called my sponsor and I said, Vicki, what do I got to do? And I went back in the next morning to his office. I said, Bob, can I speak to you for a minute? And I closed the door and I said, I need to apologize for my remarks yesterday. Because I make jokes at the expense of other people that I might find funny that are actually very offensive to you. Because who among us have not made jokes about Catholic priests, Jewish rabbis, people of color? And I said, please forgive me for what I've done. And I said, what can I do to set this right? He said, my mother is a concentration camp survivor. I'd like you to meet my mother. And he brought his mom in. She still had the tattoo up on her forearm. And I learned the history of his family, who was in Nazi concentration camps. At 18 months of sobriety, I want to buy my first home, and I don't have enough of the down payment. And he said, Marian, you are not the same woman who used to work here. I want to loan you the rest of that money. And here was a man that I made the stereotypical joke, the Jews are cheap, loaned me the money so I could buy my first home here in Alcoholics Anonymous. 11th step. sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. When I got here, my relationship with God was, God, keep me sober today, and at the end of the day, it was, thank you, God. Then my prayers became very selfish. Oh, God, I need you to take care of this for me. And then I start laughing. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm even selfish when I pray. And then it was about learning how to pray. And my sponsor taught me about praying for specifics. She said, if you give up this general prayer to God, how does he know where you need to have help? So I worked with this chick named Laura. She had purple hair, tattoos, nose rings, long before that was ever popular. Hated her. She sat right next to me, and she does not exist in my world. She'd bump her leg, roll on the floor. I hate that chick. I would drive home, and I think about how much I hate her. I go to bed, and I hate that broad. I wake up in the morning, and I'm sick because I got to go spend 8 hours with Laura. God, obviously, she's a sick person. Help me to be kind and loving and tolerant toward her today. See, because even in that resentment prayer, we asked where we could be kind and patient, show pity. All of a sudden, I could talk to Laura. Then we could have lunch. Hey, you want to have lunch? Great, yeah. And then I'd stop praying. I hate that chick. And I found out over the course of that 7.5 years that I worked at that law firm that I had to pray, that prayer was persistent and consistent. And I prayed every day to be kind and tolerant and patient, because of myself I can't. But with God's help I can. Meditation. When you get here and it's very difficult to be quiet and to have peace, and I love my backyard. I loved all the birds out here this last couple mornings, and it's the only thing green in Lancaster. It's my yard, and I sit there, and I have this big, goofy dog named Wally, and we sat outside, and I have his brush, and he's going to wait his turn, and I sit in the grass, and I turn my face up toward the sun, and I feel the sun on my face, and my mantra is, be still. I know that I'm God. And I can feel the wind ruffling through my hair, and I listen to the chimes. I listen to the sounds around me. And then I think of the 11-step prayer. And I think about the people in my life and how I may benefit them, whether it's the women I sponsor, my family, or my friends. Where can I bring this? Where there is darkness, light. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is sorrow, joy. And I ask God for those things. And when I'm done, I'm really relaxed. And then I start thinking, I got to call Carla. Shoot. Ooh, I got to get that invoice out in the mail today. Wonder what David's doing. Wonder if he wants to have lunch. And my dog's waiting, and I'm brushing Wally, and he's sitting there. And then he lays down, and I'm brushing him. And then I'm thinking, all the things I got to do. And then my dog turns his face to the sun. And he has a smile from here to here. And I realize my dog is in the moment. He's in the presence right now of God. He's not thinking about the bone that he's buried. He's not thinking about the birds that are in the yard. He's in the moment. And that moment is now, and that moment of now can be at all times for me if I take that, if I'm aware of that, my conscious presence of God. Now, I want you to know that a few years ago, I was buying one of my girls a book that my sponsor had bought me when I was newly sober, and it's at this specific bookstore, and I can't find it, and I've bought it for many of my women. But I'm looking, so on the bottom shelf, there is a book that it says, Be Still and Know That I'm God. I'm like, oh my God, that's for me. 31 days for a deeper and more effective prayer life. I'm like, fabulous. And I can't find that book. I can't find a clerk, so I have to wait in line, and there's like 5 people ahead of me. So I start thumbing through the book. Nah. No. I'm not going to get the book. Marian, get the book. You don't need the book. Marian, get the book. It's $15. Get the book. You don't need the book. You have a good prayer and meditative life. You don't need the book. Thank God the clerk was slow, because near the front of the book, it says, for those of you who think you have prayer and meditation down pat, step over to the nearest mirror and see what real denial looks like. I have bought the book, and it's been a very useful book for me. Because who am I to think I have all the answers? The time I think I have all the answers, I've gotten complacent. And only by the grace of God I didn't drink. The 12th step, having had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps. We tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. How do I get from maggot-infested apartment to where I am today without the result of God working in my life? The absolute certainty that He is the leading, driving force in my life. It can't be any other way. If I could have done all this on my own, I would have, and I can't. It's impossible for me. And to carry that message. When I'm 30 days sober, I go on my first H&I panel. Big guy named Jay in a big old red pickup truck, and I'm all cutesy, and we're driving out to this panel. I go, I don't know anything about staying sober. He goes, that's right, you don't. You know about relapse. You talk about that. Okay. I talked about smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, running my mouth, and getting drunk, and I don't know anything about staying sober, and I'm doing exactly what they told me to do. And that's the only message I had to share with them. I started my own H&I panel. I had the boys up at Camp Scudder. They were 15, 16, and 17-year-old boys. And at that point, I am doing this panel, and I like the way it made me feel, because it says, nothing so much ensures permanent sobriety as intense work with another alcoholic. It works when all other activities fail. And I like the way it made me feel, and I felt so good, and then the next day I'm feeling pretty crappy again because I'm new. So I take another panel at Camp Scudder, and I take one at Tehachapi State Prison, Palmdale Hospital, Antelope Valley Hospital, and Acton Rehab Center. And what happened when I had these boys, these 15, 16, and 17-year-old boys, sometimes I'm competing with Monday Night Football, a basketball game, and a movie, and I only got 6 boys, but those 6 boys are there to hear the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I realized that the miracle was happening in my life because for the first time in my life, I was thinking about somebody other than me. I was thinking about those boys. And that was the great miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. The first gal I ever sponsored that stayed sober, her name was Dana. I met her on my panel. I had a panel at AV Hospital. She was an inpatient. She's a little blackout drinker like me. She was getting out on New Year's Eve. And I said, great, we'll go to a meeting. And she says, I'm not going to a meeting. I'm going home. I go, honey, you don't go home, especially on New Year's Eve. You'll meet me at a meeting. So she stormed into the meeting hall, and and after the meeting, she left. And 2 weeks later, I smoked some pot, and then I got thirsty. She's a little blackout drinker like me. And I'm like, Dana, you can't smoke pot, you can't drink, what do you want to do? And so she comes back to the meeting, and she stays for a week, and then I don't hear from her, and Marian. And this went on for a period of months, and finally she called me up. She goes, I got out all my Hazelton books. I go, really? You want to go to AA? Do AA. You don't want to go? Don't go. Don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. Don't waste anybody else's time. What do you want to do? She goes, I want to do AA. Fine, throw that crap out. I'm on my way. I had 3 years of sobriety. And then I said to her, I go, you know what? You're going to go to meetings early and stay late and stick out your hand to people less time. And you're going to empty ashtrays, wipe down tables, and never turn down an AA request. And then I said, and you're sicker than most. You need to call me every day. I have never spoken to a woman like that since. I watched the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous work in this woman's life. She lived in a trailer park on the east side of town, and I worked in Los Angeles. And she would be so consumed with fear, she'd get her laundry down to the washing machines, and now she's consumed with fear that she can't come out of her trailer to go down and put it in the dryer. And she'd call me at my job, and I said, okay, Dana, open the book on fear. Let's read about that. And we'd read about that over the phone, and then we'd pray over the phone. I watched the miracle happen because I watched this woman who can't come out of her trailer become the president of her daughter's PTA. I watched the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous in another woman's life. At about 18 months of sobriety, she was 26 years old. She was diagnosed with lung cancer that had traveled to her brain. She has 2 young daughters who are 4 and 6 years old. Every day I took off from my job early to take her girls while she went to the doctor with her husband until the final day when the news was that she was terminal and at best she had 6 months to live. And she's laying in my arms and she said, Marian, why me? Dana, I don't know why you. I don't think God got you sick. I think he knew you were going to get sick. And you were able to find his grace so you could be a wife to your husband, a mother to your children, a sister to your sister, and a daughter to your parents. And in December of that year, she went into a coma and she was on a respirator. And when she came out, she was unable to speak and move. And I went every day, and a woman who didn't even know her went with me, because we never have to do anything alone here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I would get out the lotion and I would rub her feet and I'd tell her about my day. She liked Elvis. I bought an Elvis tape. I'd read from the big book. She was sleeping. I'd wake her up, and Debbie said, "Do you think we should do that?" I'm like, "Hell, I don't know. I've never done this before." I wanted to know we're here. I was with her at the moment of her passing. One of the most spiritual moments I've ever had in my life. And her family had asked me to give the eulogy because they thought I was like something better than sliced bread. And you know what? I talked about what she brought into my life, what kind of woman she was. I helped her find a pathway to God that allowed her to stay sober and become the woman he intended her to be. She taught me responsibility and commitment and dedication, integrity, empathy, compassion, all those qualities I didn't come to you with. That young woman brought into my life, and she gave me those things. She was better than the sliced bread, not me. And I'm going to tell you what my life is like today, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. I married the greatest guy here in Alcoholics Anonymous, man full of integrity and decency, and I don't attract men like that in my life. I like to talk, but I also observe and I listen. And we were in meetings, and I'm watching him, and I'm listening to him, and he's talking about he was a single dad here in AA with custody of his 2 young daughters. And he talked about the women teaching him how to braid his daughter's hair so he could send them to school with their hair nice, and showing him how to create a menu so he could feed them healthy meals. And I don't date men in AA, and I don't date men with children, because children are demanding and time-consuming. It was me. But there was something about him. And I observe everybody, the good, the bad, and the interesting. And he was interesting. And we started to date. And we dated for 6 years. We didn't live together. He had his girls. We wanted to do it right. They weren't happy about me being in their dad's life. At times, there was struggles that went on with that. And we worked on that together. And we overcame those things. Now, our life hasn't been without problems. Just the other night. Our oldest is kind of aimless and has been for quite some time. And I hear him on the phone with her, and I'm in my office, and he gets done. I go, "You did not just say we're doing that." And he comes in, and he explains what he wanted to do. And I explained what we're not going to be doing. And then we were like 2 gunslingers at the OK Corral giving the stink eye. A 15-second stare down. And my husband walked out of my office, and I'm like, "You're right, Marian. You're always right about these things." And then my head says, "Wonder if you're not." Now that's bad, because that means I got to call my sponsor. Dang. But when I came downstairs, we went on about our business. It doesn't have to turn into a screaming match. We're entitled to have different opinions and find an approach that works for both of us. So the next morning, I call my sponsor, and I'm leaving her a message, and I realize that she is out of the country this week. Dang. That means I can't even say anything till next week. So I did the only thing I could do, is I took him some roses to the office. And then the great news came. I thought, great, it's Wednesday, men's stag night. He's going to see his sponsor. Maybe Paul can knock some sense into him. Better yet, he might call him this afternoon and have an answer. After work, my husband came home and sat down, and he says, "This is what I told our daughter." You know what? it was a compromise between what he wanted and what I wanted. When I got here, I drew a line in the sand. I reinforced it with rebarb and concrete. It was impenetrable and it was immovable. You've taught me that I don't have to have that. Had the line in the sand, and then I stepped a step over that line because I don't have to live that way today. Our children, our youngest daughter, our oldest daughter, has been a wedge at various times when we were dating. We went on a cruise this past year, last February. I called my sponsor to tell her we were taking kids on a cruise with us. My sponsor knew about the last time we all went on a vacation. David and I broke up. So in September, my sponsor said, so when's that vacation you're having? I go, 2 weeks. She goes, I want you to be generous. I said, you know, I'm going to Boston for a Patriot game next week. Sorry, San Diego. And I know. Oh, you liked me till then, huh? I said, I'm going to call you when I come back. So I called and I said, so when you told me to be generous, does that mean with my spirit or my pocketbook? And she says, both. And I said, I know. She says, you're here to make new memories next week with your children. And so I did. And so when they wanted to watch 27 Dresses and Girlfriends of Christmas Past, yes, I'd love to go. Because it's easy for me to pull myself out. And I participated in all the events. And we're watching the whales off in the distance. And David and Laura, the youngest, go paint a family plate. And it says, Gibbs Family Vacation, Alaska, 2009. And the oldest and I are standing up on watching the whales off in the distance. And while we're standing there, one comes right up next to the ship and jumps out and breaches in front of us. And so exciting and so beautiful. And we hugged and we cheered. And a new beginning was formed. Our youngest, Laura, had her first, she got a little corporate America job. She works for B of A, and she was flying on her first business trip to Dallas for 2 weeks with another young woman. And she was so very excited, and we were excited for her. And they gave her a lousy flight that she had like 4 stops to get to Dallas. And I called the hotel. I said, could I do something special for her? They said, yeah, what would you like? And so I had arranged for her before her arrival time to send up fresh baked cookies and 2 glasses of milk to her room. And it had a note on it. It says, Laura, we are so proud of you. Enjoy your first business trip. Love, Daddy and Marian. Because you guys taught me how to do that. And when she walked into the room with her friend and she sees these cookies, she knew that we were behind her and we were cheering for her. And we have a good relationship because when they moved into my house after we got married, Laura's on my couch like this. I said, honey, what's wrong? She goes, I'm afraid that my dad loves you more than you love him and you're going to leave like my mother did. I said, really? Because as poorly as you and your sister have treated me over the years, if I didn't love your dad, I would have left a long time ago. And she thought about it for a minute and she said, you're right. And we've had this fabulous relation ever since. My parents, I call my parents every day except Saturday. Unless when I'm traveling or they're traveling, I call. When they're out of town, I pick up the phone and call. I've been there when my parents have had to have surgery, been sick. It's not my brother and sister who shows up, it's me. I give them back that emotional security that I stole from them for so many years. And you've given me that. On Christmas, my mother-in-law wrote a beautiful note about me in my parents' Christmas card, and my mother was so excited, and she read it to me, and I said, wow, that's not bad for the bad seed of the family, is it? And she said, no, it's not, she said. But that all changed on July 12th, 1987, Marian. And you gave that to my mom and dad. You did. My sister that I hated so much, I never had children. I babysat her son when he was born. I was the first one in the family to babysit him. She knows I'm going to look after him. 4 years ago, she had her daughter, Lauren, and she said, Scott and I would like you to be in labor and delivery with us, and she was having a cesarean. And we went into that room, and she's all strapped down, and I'm talking to her, and I'm cooing with her, and I'm rubbing on her, and I'm watching the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, Janice, here comes Lauren. She's on her way. And I got to watch the miracle of birth. And I watched my niece come out. And I celebrated that with my sister and her husband. And I stayed with her, and afterwards she said, man, you were so loving and gentle. I really didn't expect that from you. And she said, on top of that, you watched the whole thing. I go, hey, it ain't my body. The promises are all so wonderful, and they come at the 9th step. My favorite promise, and I can't say it's my favorite promise, but it's the promise that says we suddenly realize that God is doing for us which we cannot do for ourselves. Suddenly realize, oh my God, how are these things possible in my life? God has done for me, Janelle, what I could never do for myself. I pray that you come back. I pray that you allow the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous to work in your lives as it's worked in the lives of all of us in this room today. And all we have to do is one day at a time. I got sober when I was 26, and I called my sponsor. I said, Vicki, technically my life expectancy is 76. That's 50 years. I cannot not drink for 50 years. And she said, no, you can't. I go, I know, what am I going to do? She goes, you're going to do it one day at a time. Janelle, that's all I've done. One day at a time, the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous has worked in my life because I've been with you people. And I pray that you stay with us and let it work for you. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.